This for my north side,
Kiara,
south side,
Kiara,
east end,
Kiara,
west end,
Kiara,
for my H-town,
Kiara,
Seafield,
Kiara,
804,
Kiara,
we them real
Kiara.
niggas, yeah. 2 up, 2 down, rich town. 2 up, 2 down, rich town. 2 up, 2 down, rich town.
It's the Kiara Lee Show.
Rich town.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kiara Lee Show. I'm Kiara Lee and today's episode is called Life After. Today we're going to be talking to Miss Desiree Pierce. She's going to share her story. She's going to share her story about all that she's been through from abuse and molestation and horrible circumstances that she has gone through and that she has overcome. And she's going to share her story with us. Not only is she going to share her story with us, but she's going to reach out to the people who are watching right now, the women that are going through similar circumstances that Miss Pierce went through, to teach them how to overcome and to help them to get out of the current situations that they're also facing. And you have such an interesting story, Ms. Pierce, and I appreciate you being here today. Who knows how many people you're going to be helping by reaching out and by sharing your testimony. So I just thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And I just want to ask you, when did it begin? When and where did it all begin?
But first, I was born in Norfolk, Virginia. We moved to New London, Connecticut, where I spent most of my childhood life. Starting at the age of 5, my brother started molesting me. Up until when my mother and my father got separated, my brother went to live with my father in Philadelphia. So it ended when I was about 10 years old.
Wow.
From there, my mother, I have 2 older sisters. And it was my mother, my 2 sisters, and myself. And my mother started leaving us home alone for weeks to go be with her boyfriend. So we had to fend for ourselves. And that's where my stealing began. I had to start stealing at the age of 10 to feed and support my older sisters. My mother, used to tell us how she didn't want us. It was a mistake having us. I grew up thinking I was adopted. I didn't feel no kind of love in the home. I wasn't loved. As I got older, we moved to Long Island, New York. But at this time, my sisters had left home, so it was my mother and I. So at the age of 14, I met my first, let me back up, I apologize. When we first moved to New York, this family, the Scotts, had taken my sister and I under their wings. And we was going to church with them and all. And I met one of their foster sons, which was my first boyfriend. His name was Bam Bam. And I got pregnant with my first child at 15.
Wow, so I know that was hard. I know that must have been a struggle. And
scary.
I just want to back up to when you were talking about the molestation. They say that girls are most vulnerable to molestation between the ages of 7 and 13. So the age that you said that started, that's the age, it seems like overwhelmingly when a lot of girls out there are getting molested and being abused, and it's just unfortunate.
Yes, I just couldn't understand why it was happening to me. It was told, not to say anything. So, it just continued. I used to beg my mother not to leave me home alone with him, but I was always still left home alone. And he molested me for many years.
So I know that was hard to keep secret. I know that was hard to keep to yourself and not tell anyone. I couldn't imagine.
Yes.
Wow.
It tears you up inside. It destroys you.
So tell us more about young motherhood, about raising your child when you were so young.
It was scary because I didn't have anybody to teach me how to be a mother or what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to be. When I found out I was pregnant, I called my older sister and told her, but she told my mother. And so she made me come home. She, beat me with one of those slats from a bed and told me that I will be aborting my baby. And I said, no, I will not. And so the Scots took me in, because she said I could not be in her home with being pregnant. So as I got about 6 months pregnant, I moved back home, but I was not allowed to come out my room. I was not allowed to go around my mother's friends. She was ashamed. She didn't want none of her friends to know that I was pregnant because I was a young teen. When I got 7 months pregnant, went to school. I was still in school, went to school to come home where my mother had packed up and moved. And the only thing that was left in the house was my bedroom. So I'm 15, pregnant, scared, don't know what to do. I tried to commit suicide.
And I'm sure there are a lot of people watching right now, teenagers that are pregnant right now, that don't know what to do, that don't know who to tell, don't know if they should tell anyone, don't know what their next step should be.
Right.
So, it's very great of you to share this, to possibly help them. What would you suggest to that 15-year-old that's in your place, that was in, the place you were in, that's watching right now? What would you tell her to do?
Well, I would tell her, seek advice. There's plenty of counselors out there, teachers. You could talk to teachers, doctors. Just make sure you have a support group, because it's scary, you're young, and it's very hard to do it on your own.
So as far as the boyfriend who was the father of the child, how did he play a role, or?
He was happy, but he ended up in prison, so I was still left alone.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Scots started taking care of myself and my daughter when she was born. Then after that, practically, I was taking care of myself, and the Scots was, helping raise my daughter. So after I met my next children's father, I met another man, and I, started dating him. Got pregnant with my second child at 17. And I was in a very, very bad abusive relationship. The relationship was just mentally and verbally and physical abusive. I was set on fire by this father. I was driven off a cliff by this father. I mean, I was just tore down. And here I have his 2 children. And so I was afraid to leave. I didn't have no self-esteem because, growing up as a child, I didn't feel love. And I'm, just seeking for love. So anybody I felt that did love me,
you turned to them.
Yes. But it's not love. If you have to abuse somebody physically and mentally, it's not love. I was terrified to leave. Every time I used to try to leave, I would get beaten worse. Yes.
And domestic violence is a widespread issue. 1 in 4 women are affected by domestic violence. 1 in 4 women are in physically abusive relationships. So this is something that it's not just, here and there. A lot of people, that's 25% of women. 25% of women, face domestic violence in their relationships with the people they're intimate with.
Yes.
And that's something that needs to be addressed, because there are a lot of people who are facing similar stories that like I said earlier, don't know what to do. Like you said, a physically abusive relationship, there's no love. Too many girls don't know that. Too many girls don't have that advice, didn't have that advice, and too many girls are suffering right now.
Right, and what I want to say behind that is you don't have to go through it. They try to break you down. I mean, we already don't have, we have low self-esteem. And that's where your abusive partner, wants to control you, make you feel that nobody wants you, nobody loves you. So that's why we stay in that relationship, because we try to hold on to that one person that we think that, do love or care about us. It's easier to say to somebody than if you've been in that situation. And I've been in that situation my whole life. Every relationship I've been in was very physical and mentally abusive. And just go, leave, love yourself. You don't have to settle for less. You have to start within yourself. You have to love yourself and say that you don't, and you don't have to put up with this. You could live your life and enjoy your life. There's always somebody out there that will love you. They have plenty of domestic violence shelters, counseling, call 911. Don't be afraid. Just don't keep yourself in a situation because you could end up dead.
That's true. So when a woman is hit or when a woman is abused in a relationship, how does that, just try to bring us to that psychology. How does that make someone feel when you're with someone you love and that person you love strikes you or hits you? Just take us to that feeling. How does that feel?
Well, the first time you're angry. And, why did he do this to me, or why she did this to me? And then their words are, I'm sorry, I love you, I'll never do this again, or you made me mad, if you didn't do this, I wouldn't have to hit you. And then you just start getting used to it, thinking, but this is how it's supposed to be. He loves me, and he hits me because he loves me. So, I'm thinking, if you don't beat on me, you don't love me. That's how I felt.
Wow. So how old were you when this first started, when you were in your first abusive relationship?
17.
17.
For physical. Now, mentally, started as a child.
And I understand also that drugs were in the past as well.
Oh, yes.
Tell us a little about that.
Yes. I have 11 children, and when I had my 7th child, I was introduced to drugs by my kid's father, and he just, was telling me, because it started off, he was stealing my stuff, stealing my money, and we arguing back and forth, why you keep taking my stuff? And so just one day, he just said, I want you to try it and see how I feel. And I did, and that was it.
Okay. So what drugs were these? Which
Crack
ones?
cocaine.
Okay. And at first, what did you think? Did you like it? Were you scared to do it?
I was so scared. I cried. I thought I was dying.
So you were pretty much pressured into doing so.
Yes, because I loved him and I wanted to keep him, and I would do anything to have kept him at that time.
And it's interesting too, because statistics say that sexual abuse and early parenthood are two major contributors to women using drugs. So it's very interesting that lifestyle factors have a lot to do with, when women do use drugs and drug abuse comes into play. So tell us more about that.
Well, when I started using drugs, I just went downhill quick. I was still having babies, and my ex-sister-in-law, I had 2 ex-sister-in-laws. I looked up to them as my sister. They used to beg me, Desiree, don't do it, because they knew me before I started using drugs. And I had their support, but once you start using drugs, especially crack cocaine, you just can't stop. And at that time, I didn't want to stop because I just didn't want to feel no more. So I'm using drugs, drinking every day, stealing to get my drugs and my alcohol, lying, not taking care of my children. Their grandmother, Kiara Lee, had to take care of my children. After I finally, the father had went to prison, and I left and I moved back home to South Carolina. Okay. I had 6 children, no, 6, 7. I had 7 children then. I was getting in trouble in South Carolina, still stealing, lying, doing whatever I can to get drugs. I had to go do 45 days in jail. My mother wouldn't keep my children. She, every time I got in trouble, she would get my kids, but said, that's it, she's not getting them no more, because every time Social Service would say, yeah, we'll give you a check, she wouldn't keep my kids. So, I would get out of jail before she could get her first check. So she didn't want to keep my kids no more. So I had to do 45 days in jail, and I didn't have nowhere for my kids to go. I didn't want to turn them over to the state. So one lady kept 3 of my kids, and my mother told me to call the father of 4 and see if he'll keep them until I get out of jail. So she paid for me to go down there to take my children, and promised me the day I got out of jail that she would take me to go get my kids. But that never happened. From the start, I did not want to take my children to New York, okay? But I did want them to get to know their family as well. And when I got out of jail, she said, no, I'm not taking you to go get your kids. And that just made me go on the bench. I just got high like there was no tomorrow. I just couldn't. 6 days after I took 4 of my kids to New York, somebody called Child Protective Service on me. So I lost 3 of my children to foster care, where they were severely abused in foster care, and I still wouldn't get clean. I didn't know how to get clean. The courts ordered me to go to rehab. I'll go rehab, call my dealers from rehab. But finally, on December 12th of my birthday, 1998, I was sick and tired. Child Protective Service was finna terminate my parental rights. I wanted my children, I just didn't know how. On December 12th, 1998, I cried. I got down on my hands and knees. I called my mother. I said, I'm ready. Please take me. So I was pregnant with my 10th child. And I went to rehab. After I gave birth to her in rehab, they were finna send me home. And I was like, I'm not ready to go back out into society yet. So they put me into a transitional home. So I spent 13 months in rehab. And
So how do you think that this affected your children, or do you think it affected your children, the moving around and the changes in lifestyle, and how do you think this affected your children?
It has destroyed my children. It has destroyed my family. Physically, mentally. One of my sons that was taken to New York, he was being molested. So I'm struggling with that issue now. He has mental illness now because of the abuse. I have 2 of them that has accepted me and forgiven me.
That's great.
I have my daughter that was also taken to New York. She still resents me very much. But all I could do, apologize, and tell them I did not wake up one day and say, hey, I don't want my kids. I love my kids with every breath of my body. And, I tried so hard to reach out to her for the last 10 years, but I understand that hurt. And I know I have to deal with it for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that. But there is counseling. You have to get help. You cannot do this on your own. I go through counseling. I see a psychologist. I have an in-home counseling to help me deal with all that I have been through and how I have destroyed my children's lives. And I just feel that I should have been a better mother, but I cannot dwell on what I have done. All I could do is try to help them where they are now and help them grow and not overcome it, because it will always be in the back of your head. But if you don't talk about it and deal with the situation, it's not going to help.
And I think a lot of times in our community, in the Black community, people don't like the idea of seeking help. People are ashamed to seek help. People, are like, why, do I need to do this? I can take care of this issue on my own. Either I'm going to brush it under the rug or I'm going to deal with it on my own. But as you said, that's not always the case. That's not always going to help. It's important that we all know, no matter what you're going through, there's a woman out there who's getting beat by her boyfriend or significant other. There's someone out there that's being molested by a family member, There's someone out there that's trying to get off of drugs as we speak right now, but they're afraid to get help. And like you said, I just want to reiterate, it's okay to get help. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to seek advice. It's okay. And I feel like in general as a people, Black people, we need to stick by each other more. We need to have more unity. We need more sisterhood between females. We need that because we all go through something, whether it's something small or something big. And it's just important to know that it's okay to reach out. And you need to reach out and get help before, like you said, before it's too late.
Right, because I didn't physically, I didn't get totally help with all that I've been through, the abuse and all, until I moved to Richmond, Virginia 4 years ago. And I didn't know I had a mental illness because you go through so much in life. I have bipolar and I have PTSD, and I'm not ashamed to say I have that because I'm glad that I found help. And that many people know that there is help out there. And you think that your situation is worse. No, there's always somebody out there that has been through way more than you have. But it's a great feeling. Contact, just go call 911 if you have to. They'll give you places to call. For here in Richmond, Virginia, there's Richmond Behavior, Henrico Mental Health. It's somebody out there that do care about you.
And I kind of want to rewind to the domestic abuse when we were talking about affecting children and everything and seeking help. For those who are ashamed to seek help on these issues, at least seek the help and at least reach out, for your children if children are involved. Because statistics do say that girls who witness domestic violence, the odds are stacked against them that they will grow up and ultimately be abused by their partner. And the boys too, boys that witness domestic violence, the odds are against them that they will grow up to be abusers themselves. So if you're ashamed of getting help for yourself and you don't want to do that, you know, that's on you, which I urge you to get help, you know. But at least if you have kids in the situation, if they're children, you know, in the situation, when children come into play, please try to seek that help, that advice, you know, for them. Because you don't want them to grow up and have to face the same things that you are going through. We want to protect our children the best we can.
And I agree with you 100%, because what I want to say to mothers, pay attention to your children. Pay attention to what's going on in their lives, you know, because you don't, for yourself, you don't realize that is wrong. And everybody needs somebody. You cannot do this on your own.
Okay. And again, I thank you so much for sharing your story with us. This is a 2-part episode because we have so much to talk about. And the part 2 of this episode, Ms. Pierce is going to talk about how she overcame this adversity. And we're going to find out how she turned her life around. We're going to find out how she turned lemons into lemonade, you know. There's a happy ending at the end of this. The power of prayer, the power of staying close to God and things like that. And she's going to share, you know, with us that stuff about how she overcame and positivity, you know, what she's doing in the community now, you know, to help other people and to reach out. You know, the story doesn't end here. So I want you all to tune in next week so, you know, we can talk with Ms. Pierce again and find out, you know, what she's up to now, what she's doing. And for those of you that are in those abusive relationships right now, those of you that are being molested at home, those of you that are, you know, in bad situations, you can tune in next week and you can learn something for yourself possibly from her story, because that's what it's all about, helping each other and helping each other help ourselves. Thank you for tuning into the Kiara Lee Show. Until next week, see you again. Thank you.
This for my north side,
Kiara.
south side,
Kiara.
east end,
Kiara.
west end,
Kiara.
for my H-town,
Kiara.
Seafield,
Kiara.
804,
Kiara.
we them real
Kiara.
niggas, yeah. 2 up, 2 down, rich town. 2 up, 2 down, rich town. 2 up, 2 down, rich town.
It's the Kiara Lee Show.
Rich town.